Hello, world. This is your boy Robert Bass for World Class Clown Comedy, and I would like to thank you for tuning in to the first installment of World Class Clown Comedy Presents Just Clowning Around. Man, it's been a long time coming for me to get to this point, simply because I wanted to make sure that when I did it in a way that nobody was offended. And then I realized that we live in a society that is very sensitive. And there is no way for me to say what I feel or believe without stepping on someone's toes. So with that being said, if I step on your toes, I don't give a fuck. I already warned you, so you probably should have moved them. It is never my intention to offend anyone, but at the same time, I don't believe that I should have to cater what I feel based upon the fact that you feel as though your feelings are more important than mine. With that being said, I didn't necessarily sit down and write out a plan as to how I wanted to execute this first one. So I will go ahead and verbally admit that the first is probably going to be the worst, but it's probably also going to be my best because it's going to be my most honest. I sat down and I realized something, and that something that I realized is that to be boastfully one of, or actually, let me rephrase that, boastfully state that we are the greatest country in the world, I realized that we are also the most sensitive. And there's no way around it, and it really doesn't matter as to which aspect or angle to which you look from. But the thing that I realized is, being an African American, it just makes it a slightly more interesting. I sat back and I watched and I observed everything that was going on in society today. I am not a big supporter of the man in the Oval Office right now, but that's my personal opinion about it. If you support him, that's great. That's what democracy is about. You are supposed to be able to talk about and as well as communicate what your feelings are about your country. As an African American, I've grown to understand that a lot of things that we feel will always be overshadowed by the machine. And the machine, as it pertains to me, is that machine that takes a victim and demonizes them. It takes a father in New Orleans who's selling bootleg tapes and CDs at a convenience store that gave him permission to do so. It gave society the right to take his life and then say, oh, well, he was selling bootleg CDs. It takes a young 18-year-old boy in Missouri who probably didn't choose the best profession, in the sense of on the side hustle, he decided to sell weed, and he was doing the barter system, in the sense that he was selling weed to the people at the store. They owed him cigars, and so when he was shot with his hands up, the world decided that, hey, well, he had stole cigars, and so his life wasn't as important as a pack of cigars that was actually rightfully his. It doesn't, we live in a society that doesn't take in consideration that when 911 dispatcher tells a man to not follow what he deems as a suspect, and then he ultimately kills him, society is okay with this guy being set free for killing a member of his community that he didn't know was a member of his community, but ironically, he was the head of the neighborhood watch. I generally don't get into politics because politics doesn't really pay out for black people. And then, there are some people who will say, well, wait a minute, what are you talking about? Barack had two terms. Yeah, Barack did have 2 terms. And in those 2 terms, he wasn't American. He was African. He didn't belong here. He lied about his birth certificate. His wife was a monkey in heels. And therefore, it just goes back to the narrative that he, as well as his family, didn't belong in the position that they belonged in. But even more so, we live in a society that's so sensitive that we are more concerned with what we say as opposed to the fact that in now not being able to say what we want to say, we have now allowed the people who were once bullied to become bullies. I'll say this, and I don't really care how they feel about it. And therefore, that means I really have no desire to ever run to be president ever in my life. But the alphabet community, LGBTQ, LMNOP, has gone from being bullied to being bullies now. Kevin Hart can't do the Oscars because he made a statement about not wanting his son to be gay. And then there has been times when I've watched interviews of people who were a part of that community stating that based upon the things that they went through, if it wasn't their true identity, they wouldn't wish it upon anyone. But now all of a sudden, when someone states that they don't wish it upon their offspring, it's an issue. The thing that I never really understood, and for you people who stayed around and you're waiting for a punchline, here's a joke for you. I never understood how someone could do something so strong and yet present themselves as weak. I couldn't imagine what it would be like in my life to have to come out to parents who are traditional. And by traditional, I mean they believe in Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. And be able to tell them, hey, my true identity relates to the gay community, whether it be homosexual or lesbian. I don't understand how someone that is that strong can then present themselves to be that weak. Now, I know I'm not a part of that community, and at the same time, someone from that community will say, only speak of what you know. And I will then say, then don't talk to me about race because you don't know what it is to be black, unless you are black and gay, and then, well, you have the upper hand on me because now you have two issues. I know that it seems as though I'm rambling, but I'm not. A lot of my friends think that I overthink things, and because I hear that in the back of my head, I always feel the need to set up what it is that I'm about to now say. So with that being said, the thing that I want to say now is, it is funny that the bullied has become bullies to the point that now it creates scenarios that you never once in your mind ever thought about, in the sense that it would now become a hot topic in society. What topic is that? The topic that we're all talking about. Jussie Smollett, or whatever the fuck his name is, don't really matter. When you become a liar, you become less than. That's how I feel. If you lie to me for something that you don't need to lie about, if you're lying to save your life, in my opinion, or rather in my world, in my universe, you get a pass. If you are lying to lie, I can't fuck with you. So just say I can't fuck with you. But the reality of it is, a lot of times people don't often see or accept or understand what it is that your actions cause. In my opinion, and I want to give my disclaimer before I say this, I do know and understand in my mind and in my heart that this was not the objective of the black community as well as the gay community. But this young man took something that was sacred to both communities, African Americans that go through racism every day, because you may not believe or acknowledge that President Trump is racist, but you have to, in the back of your mind, understand that he is not stopping anything that's on the racist agenda. So for African Americans, we live in a society, in a country that we didn't ask to be in, that we were brought to, and then told we don't belong here. No shit, Sherlock, but you weren't thinking that when you didn't fucking want to build your own goddamn country. Yeah, I'm sorry, mama. I'm gonna stop cussing. And then you take in consideration the gay community, a community to which, despite anything that I've said before, I have the utmost respect for, because aside from being African American, the rest of my life is pretty normal. I am a heterosexual male who is attracted only to women, who has had 2 kids with a woman, who is now a grandfather. So I live and breathe a heterosexual lifestyle. Therefore, I don't know what it is to come out and be against the norm. I mean, some can say, well, you dated white women. It was still women. It was still pink. Listen, but the reality of it is, this young man took the thing that hurt both communities and used it as a ploy, as a hoax. He took the racism that black people feel every day and he grabbed us in. Like, what? They talking about make America great again, this MAGA country. They had nooses. Nooses. For anybody that ain't been black long, anyone that has been black long knows that nooses is probably a visual image of the N-word, in the sense that when we see a noose, it's the same feeling as when we hear the N-word, because it still represents a time when we weren't viewed as being human. So he took that. He took the thing that we were sensitive about, and he made it about him. He made it about something that didn't exist. So he took it. Actually, I take that back. He didn't make it about something that was him. He made it seem as though it really wasn't important. That's how I feel about it. And then when you address the gay community, you know, there were the racial slurs and there were the gay slurs and the homophobic slurs. So he took something that was a lifestyle that most people don't live, and that's the thing that I do hope that people get, that I do respect, even though it's not my lifestyle. I do respect. If you believe that you were born that way, I can't tell you that you weren't. So he took something that was sensitive to the gay community and he combined them both and then threw them in our face like a pile of shit being thrown by monkeys. We have to worry and we have to be careful about the level of sensitivity that we have. If we weren't so sensitive, we would have sniffed this out from the beginning. Now, realistically speaking, there's some black people that was like, something about this shit don't sound right. I'm not even gonna lie. Me, I watch the weather. Excuse me. The job that I have, I work in the call center and we ship stuff all over the United States. So in the morning, I watch the weather, not because of my job. I just watch it just to know what the weather gonna be like here. But when the weather is severe elsewhere, they mention it. So when the story broke, I think that was probably like a day or two after they had mentioned that the weather was so bad in Chicago that the United States Postal Service was not even delivering. Remember, their slogan is what? Rain, sleet, hail, snow. They gonna deliver? So if it's too bad for the United States Postal Service, why the fuck are you out 2 o'clock in the morning going to Subway? Subway? Listen, man, I'm not gonna lie. I've had Subway, and Subway subs are okay. I'm a native of Florida. Bitch, I've had a Publix sub. I ain't even gonna lie. If it's 50 below, I am not going to Publix for a Publix sub, and I believe that Publix subs are far superior over Subway subs. Therefore, I said it, yes. And Publix, if you want to sponsor me, that's cool. You know, I'll take sponsorship. But you took something that was sacred to 2 communities. You meshed it up. Meshed. That's what I'm trying to say. Or mushed. Okay, there we go. You mushed it up and you made it something so bad that everybody came out and they supported you. And for what? What is now being deemed a ploy to uplift your career? Wow. Wow. Now, there's some people that'll probably look at this and say, well, Robert, what do you know? You don't necessarily have a career. And in some aspects, you're right. And by some aspects, I mean damn near all of them. But the reality of it is, even at my level of comedy, there are some things that I could do that would just be considered fucked up, but to people that don't know what's going on would be totally hilarious. Like for example, I once told a joke where the question was, how do you feel about white people talking about black people eating fried chicken? And my response was, I didn't care, simply because I was a black man that ate fried chicken. Like, it's real. You know, the thing is, like, there's so many feelings about it. Like like I stated, on one hand, it's kind of messed up, you know, because of what he did to the African American community as well as the gay community. But then, in the back of my mind, I can't front. Part of me is like, well, maybe what's good for the goose is good for the gander. When you take in consideration how many times there were white Americans who blamed black Americans for shit that they didn't do. In my mind, one of the most notorious would be Emmett Till, where the white woman whistled, or claimed rather, that Emmett Till whistled at her, and then he ultimately ended up getting killed. And then I want to say within the last 3 or 4 years, or on her deathbed, she acknowledged that it wasn't true. Like, you lived your whole entire life with that fucking lie. And this young man didn't make it past 14. So when I talk as an African American, I know my history. I know of lynchings. I know of Black Wall Street and the things that they went through because we weren't deemed equal. Fuck it, we weren't even deemed human. We were just deemed as property. And so for you to take it and say, oh, well, you know, it was some white people that screamed, you know, this is MAGA country. First off, who the fuck really refers to it as MAGA country? Like, I don't use that term. And I really think that the president is racist. I'll put that up there. So who really says MAGA? Fucking news. The news says MAGA. So, like, it's messed up. And then for you to be like, oh, and then they knew, they said gay, homophobic slurs. Like, goddamn. I watched my dude from today's nightly news, Trevor Noah, and he said, like, so you wanted us to believe that, you know, these people were so racist, but they knew about Empire. Like, even better than that, like, bitch, it was below zero. And you want me to believe that as wrapped up as you should have been, they could tell you was gay? Unless you was talking like the dudes on The Living Color, I don't even believe that. I hated it. No. So, I want to say this. Let's stop being sensitive. If we stop being so sensitive to shit that is being said, then that'll allow us to weed out the motherfuckers that mean no greatness for our society. I do believe that as an African American in the United States, the powers that be never really want to see us be great. Doesn't mean that we shouldn't strive for it, but in striving for it, we should also strive to make sure that everything that we do is honest. And I feel as though everything that this young man has done and said, it does set us back. You know, it wasn't bad enough that we were still reeling off the shit that Kanye was saying. Now we got to deal with this dude. So it's not even 1 or 2 steps back. Like, we're now 6, 7, 8 steps back. And the sad part is, like, this whole conclusion came along right around the time when we got slight justice. You know, it was proven that there was, or at least, let me rephrase that. It wasn't proven, but there was a settlement as it pertains to collusion from the NFL for Colin Kaepernick. So, you know, I think that we have to not be so sensitive to the fact that we can't stick to the facts. Let's look at things. Listen, at the end of the day, if we're going to be skeptical about shit, let's be skeptical about it. It's going to happen, and I'm okay with that. But at the same time, let's be real. Everything that glitters is not gold. And we like to say if it walks like a duck and it talks like a duck, then maybe it is a duck. Sometimes it's just a fucking bird. All right. Yeah. Maybe the next time I'll be more put together with my thoughts. But for now, my name is Robert Bass. This has been World Class Clown Comedy. And hey, I'm just clowning around. Deuces.